Hi everybody, I'm Jay with JST Woodworks. Today I'm going to show you how to install your omelet chicken door. It's an automatic door that opens and closes based on either the sunlight, it opens and closes based on sunrise and sunset, or you can set it on a timer and you can open it either based on the specific time like 6 a.m., 6 p.m., or you can set it to open and close based on a number of different hours. You can set it to open for 12 hours at a specific time, and then it'll close 12 hours later. But let's go ahead and get this unboxed, see what we have here, and get it put up on the chicken coop. Just a quick note about the omelet chicken door. This is actually our second one that we've ordered. This is going to be the second one I've installed now. The first one we ordered, it was back in 2021, and it took like 6 months to get it. I forget if it was 3 or 6 months, whichever. But it took quite a while. The other day my wife ordered it, and surprisingly it came in under a week. So apparently Omelets ramped their production back up and they're getting their product shipped out pretty quickly. And like I said, it came within a week, and it was probably faster than some other shipping methods. So this is how it comes packaged. It comes in a nice box, pretty sturdy, good corrugated cardboard. Let's get it opened and we'll see what's inside. So we're going to unbox it here. Everything comes in pretty nicely packaged. It all stays together here. We have the directions. As any man knows, what are we going to do with these? We're just going to put it together, right? No, I'm just kidding. We'll get back to those in a few minutes here. The instructions actually make it a ton easier, and there's a bunch of different methods of installing one of these omelet doors. So depending which method you're using and what you're installing it on, you actually do need the instructions. So we have the door here. We have the control panel with the photovoltaic sensor, and let's start unboxing this, shall we? So here I've gone ahead and I've opened up the instruction manual, and it shows there's a number of different parts that come with it. Like I said, we had the door, the control panel. There's some retaining brackets in the box here that we haven't gotten to. There's a number of different fittings, and then there's some parts for the automatic door itself. A lot of these parts, depending what your installation method is, probably won't be used. Today we're only going to use, I believe, 3 of all these parts, maybe 4. We're definitely going to use the wing nut. We're going to use one of the 2 machine screws, probably the smaller of the 2. Because we're only mounting it on a small piece of plywood because it's a temporary housing for our chickens. And then we're going to use the run handle washer here for certain. Anything else that we may use, we'll get to in the video here shortly. The instruction manual, it comes in several different languages. I believe there's 9 total. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So yeah, a total of 9 languages. I can't read any of these. I can read a little bit of the French here. But today I'm just going to stick with the English instructions to make it a whole lot easier for myself. Omelet makes this simple for a number of different installation methods. So let's get this unboxed and get to it. So we're going to get started. We're going to take this cardboard insert out with the control monitor or control panel here. And we'll get that open. So control panel. There's a tab in the back. This piece of cardboard lines up, so I guess we will use another one of the pieces that was in there. And it's in a wedge, so you install the bracket that's similar to this on wherever you're mounting it, and it slides back in, and then the wedge will actually hold it in there. So we'll recycle the cardboard here. We'll get that taken care of. Open this box up. And we have some more mounting brackets for the chicken door. We'll use these here shortly. More cardboard to recycle. And then we have 2 packages here of fittings. One's for the door and the mounting hardware itself. The other package is for the inside of the door, and it's got everything you need to get it mounted here. For the door itself. So let's get started and we'll see what we have in there. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to take out the two Phillips head screws here inside the door mechanism. This is what controls the metal gear that opens and closes the door. So I'm going to leave everything in the box here. That way I have a place to put the screws where I won't lose them. If you're anything like me, you will put a screw down and it will disappear, and it'll take you days to find it, and then you'll just end up going to the store and buying a new one. And then as soon as you buy the new one, you'll find it. So here we have our door parts. So we're going to go in here, we're going to take out the gear and this plastic piece that is actually going to hold the gear in position. So there's still a few screws in here. We're going to put these off to the side. We'll seal the bag up so we don't lose anything. So this part just comes up. It's got the wire that attaches to a plug here. That plug runs through the back side of it and comes out to the longer power cord that goes to the control panel. So what we're going to do here, we're going to take this metal gear and install it. And as you can see, maybe not, in there's a little flat spot. We just want to put it in here, line it up with the flat spot. And we want to make sure it's seated all the way down. And then from there, we're going to take this piece, put it in directly over top here. It lines right up. It marries into the gear. And then we're going to make sure we put the wires back in without pinching or crimping anything. And we're going to go ahead and put these screws back in. So we're not going to tighten them too tight. We don't want to break the plastic. Just enough so that everything's seated up and not going to come loose. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the door on here. And we're going to just set it in place. And we're going to flip the entire thing upside down. In our case, the door can either open left to right or right to left, and it all depends on how you orient the opening. So I'm going to put it on this way. You could also put it on this way. It makes no difference. It will work upside down. Really, there is no upside down, right side up, whatever you want to call it. So we're just going to continue working on it just like this. We're going to take the whole thing. We're going to flip it over. I forgot to mention before, there's a power cord here that's stuck off in the side. So we're going to lay this right back down in the box, like I said. That way I don't lose anything. And if you can see, right in here, there's some screws or some holes to put screws in. Let's see if I can get a little closer here. So both the top and the bottom have these. There's a plastic bracket that we're going to install now, and that's going to hold the door in position. So let's get that a little closer so you can see it. So two plastic brackets. This is what holds the door in position. So we're gonna drop that one down there. Drop this one on the top. And like I said, there were some other screws here in the auto door fittings gear. We're gonna use these 4 screws and get 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom. So there we have it. We've got the door put together. Now the only thing we need to do is get it installed onto our coupe. Like I said before, Omelette makes a number of their own coupes. The Omelette Cube, they add the brackets to install it on the cube. You can also install it on mesh. They've included all the stuff for that. We're just going to do it on a piece of plywood. We're going to install ours on a piece of plywood that goes on the temporary coupe. No different than on our regular coupe, on the battens that were there. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the wood installation. I'm not going to show you how to do it on a cube or mesh because I don't have any of that. So let's get cutting. So here's the plywood we're going to put back on the coop. You can see they kind of made a mess of it already. If you can see it, there's a pencil line here that shows the outside, or actually the inside of the opening for that playhouse that we're using. So you can see there's plenty of room to cut an opening. I already cut this opening for the previous coop door. For the omelet, we need an 8-inch wide by 12-inch tall opening. So we're going to have to open this one up a little bit. So let's go ahead and measure that. And it looks like we have enough room on either side. I believe I centered it. So there's 10 inches on this side, 11 inches on this side. And when I measure the omelet door, that goes to the either left or right of the opening, it's 10.5 inches. So what we'll end up doing is putting the omelet door hardware mechanism on this side, and we'll add that extra 1/4 inch on this side, so there's plenty of room to mount it over on this side. So let's go ahead and we'll draw that out and get it cut. So here I'm going to drill a starter hole in one of the corners, just for the jigsaw blade to drop down into. So we'll actually start from here, because I've already cut out this side. Typically you would put one in each corner, and then you would cut up and across, and then the opposite, you would go across and up, and that way you get your all 4 sides cut. So like I said, because this side is already cut, we just need one starter hole. We probably didn't even need it because we could have come up this way. But actually, now that I look at it, we would have needed it to go this way. You can also round it and then come back and then straighten it. This just makes it a little bit quicker. So let's go ahead and get that cut. So you'll see it's a little jagged here just from the jigsaw. If you want, you can go ahead and sand it. For this, I'll go ahead and I'll touch it up with the sander here real quick, and we'll go ahead and get this door mounted up here. So like I said before, Omelet adds a number of extra parts for other installation methods. We're going to go ahead and we're going to grab the parts that we need, and I'm also going to go ahead and grab a drill bit for mounting purposes. According to the instructions, you need a 7mm drill bit. Not really sure what 7mm is. I never really used metric, only imperial. And looking here at my drill bits, yeah, don't have any that say millimeters. So we're just gonna have to line the screws up with the drill bit and hope that it's the right size. Sorry about that. I'm not sure where I left off. The battery died in the camera we're using. If you haven't noticed, this is my first YouTube video. My wife decided that I should try it. Apparently people like watching woodworking videos, myself included. I'll spend half a day some days watching different woodworking videos. So if you like what you see here, click subscribe, and hopefully I'll have some other videos up in the near future. You can also find me on Facebook. It's JST Woodworks ADK. Or you can find me on Instagram. It's jst.woodworks. Both of those I update regularly. Typically use it as my business page. Mostly you'll see me do picnic tables, cutting boards, charcuterie boards, stuff like that. But I do a whole lot of other things, so we'll see what happens. Maybe this YouTube video will take off and you'll see me posting a number of other videos in the near future. But anyway, let's get back to the omelet door while you're really here. So we've got our board. We're going to set the omelet door in place. We're going to make sure the openings are large enough and there's no obstructions. In the instructions for the door, it does specifically say to be sure that there are no obstructions, because there's a sensor in here that if the door has any resistance, it won't close completely, it'll reopen. And we found that in the winter with our door, if we don't get the snow and ice cleaned out after a windstorm from this area, then sometimes there'll be a little bit of ice caught in here and the door won't close properly. So if we do get some rain, some snow, some icy conditions, sorry, not rain, but some freezing rain, we go ahead and we run out and we just clean up all the ice. That way it closes. And sometimes, you know, the chickens, because they're pretty messy sometimes, they'll get some stuff in here and there'll be some resistance and the door will open back up. But we're pretty good at checking it when we go out and change the water in the winter to make sure there's nothing there and it closes fine. So we'll grab the screws we need, but real quick, we're just gonna take a pencil and we'll find a smaller one here in the shop somewhere. You know, anytime you need a pencil, you can never find one. And then when you do find one, it apparently doesn't fit how you want it to. So we're gonna go ahead and just mark where the holes need to be drilled for the mounting hardware. Let's go ahead and move the door out of the way. And we got our 4 marks. Let's go ahead and grab the other hardware that we need and figure out what of the hardware we're going to use. So like I said, there's quite a bit in here, so I'm going to be messy and dump it out in here. That way you can see it all. And we'll separate everything based on what we need or don't need. So there's some wood screws here. We're going to put those off to the side. We're going to use those to mount the control panel. We'll put those up here. We're not going to need these zip ties. I believe the zip ties were for the mesh and the cube installation. So we'll set those off, and everyone loves zip ties. I'll probably use them for another project. We will need this piece, like I showed you with the unboxing. This goes to the back of the control panel. You mount it as such. It locks in, and it's in kind of a wedge so that as it pushes down, it seats itself. Gravity brings it down and it holds it right there. That way when you need to unmount it, there's no screws or anything. You can just lift it off and make any repairs or changes that you need to. Here's those longer screws I talked about. We'll grab the 4 of those. There's 4 shorter ones. We'll put those in the other corner. We may end up using these just because this is a very thin piece of plywood. I think it's only a 1/2 inch piece of plywood. So we'll see if those work. Not sure what these go to. That might be for the cube as well or for the mesh. But it looks like the screws probably just, these are threaded, so they just screw in like that for whatever installation method you use. Not sure what this goes to just yet. I'm sure we'll figure that out at some point. If I think hard enough, I believe it might actually go to the control panel, but we'll put that up here. We're just going to use these wing nuts. There's 4 wing nuts. Oh, look, there's another screw. We'll put that up here. And we're going to use these 4 washers. They're not a standard washer. They're like a C-channel type washer. But like I said, I used them in our previous one. They work just fine, so we're not going to reinvent the wheel, and we're just going to use these. So I'm going to go ahead and put the other stuff away that we're not going to use, and I'm going to see which screws we're going to end up using. And I'm going to go ahead and drill these holes off camera, and we'll be right back. So I actually got thinking about it, and you know, when you have a question, what do? You either ask YouTube or you ask Google. So I decided that I would type in to Google in the search bar, convert 7 millimeters to inches, and this is what I got, 0.276 inches. So we're going to use a 1/4 inch drill bit, and if we need to, we'll shave out a little bit extra. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to get this here mounted. Much to my surprise, I checked before we started the video here, and we are going to need the longer screws. The shorter ones just didn't cut it. And believe it or not, the 1/4 inch hole worked just fine. So we're going to set all 4 screws in. Apparently we got a little burr stuck in this one. There we go. I'm going to wait to flip this over. I'm going to put some of the hardware on first before I flip it over to show you. That way it stays in where it needs to stay. So like I said, the 4 washers, the 4 wing nuts. Not sure about all of you, but I've been called a wing nut a time or two. So we'll get those on. I'll call it finger tight, but just enough so that the screws don't fall out. All right, now that they're on relatively finger tight, we'll go ahead and flip this over so you can see it. So as you can see here, just have the washers, the wing nuts here. We'll go ahead and spin those on. And again, like I said, you really don't need to put these on too tight. I'll grab the screwdriver here just to hold them in and snug them up. There's really no rhyme or reason behind which way I put these. I put the C-channel down just in case I did over tighten it. There'll be a little bit of flex in it and hopefully keep the plastic from breaking. And like I said before, I really don't like using a drill to tighten stuff, especially on plastic. So now that these are snugged up, there we go. And like I said, it's got a sensor in it. We have plenty of room here. Plenty of room here, plenty of room on this side. You will see a small gap up here. Let me get that in the camera. It's going to be in the bottom. I'll either try to glue a piece of wood in here later, or after we see how it closes. We may not even need anything. It's only a temporary home, so I don't think the critters are going to get into it. And a hole that size, I don't think anything big's going to get into it. Obviously mice have plenty of room to get in, but I'm not worried about mice getting in at this point. So these are tightened up. Let's get it mounted back on the coop, and then we'll get the control panel mounted and we'll go from there. So I got thinking about it. I was going to mount the control panel when we got outside, but I figured while we have the wood inside, we might as well just do it now. So like I was saying, you have this piece here, the wedge, as I like to call it. In the back of the control panel. What happens is it just slides in just like this, and that's what keeps the control panel mounted. So in order to take it off, you just lift up and it pops right off. So start high, it slides down in the channels, locks in just like that. To take it off, just lift this up and it comes right off. So anytime you need to do any maintenance on this or take it off or whatnot, it just pops right off. It's really not hard to take off. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and mount this piece on the plywood off to the right of the door. Just put it on there and make the installation when we get outside a whole lot easier. By then, we should just be able to screw the board back onto the temporary coop, and my wife can program it because she's become the pro at doing so. I have no idea how to do it. If it was up to me, it would open and close to the sun, but she wants to make sure all the chickens are safe, that they're all inside before we leave or before we go to bed, and she wants to make sure they're all out and about and the door's not locked before she goes to work. I work midnights and don't get home till about 8 a.m. So there's days where they very well could have been out for 3-4 hours at that point, and if they were locked in the coop for 4 hours before I got home, they'd be pretty angry chickens. But again, it's a pretty good sized coop. We're adding quite a few more to our flock now, so they might get a little sick of being in there with each other. So we're gonna make sure that this works. So if you know a little bit about woodworking, or even if you don't, anytime you're gonna drill into wood without a self-tapping screw, which they don't include, They just have standard wood screws. You want to pre-drill and then screw. I also would have marked these typically, but it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not really too worried about what it's going to look like, because as I keep saying, this one's just temporary. So we'll go ahead and screw these in. That little bag of screws I showed you earlier, it had a number of wood screws in it. There were 3 of these. They're 3/8 of an inch. The rest of them were 3/4 of an inch. And like I said, this was only 1/2 inch. It might only be 3/4 inch, or sorry, 3/8 inch plywood. I believe it's 1/2 inch though. So I'm using the smaller of the screws just so they don't stick out. We are beyond that faint line that you can see where they won't poke the chickens, but just so they don't stick out the other end, which nope, they don't. It's just a little burr from the wood. So we have that. When you mount this, slides right on, and I'll stand it up here in a minute and you can see what it looks like installed. So we're gonna have to go ahead and we're gonna take these 4 screws off, and we're gonna put the batteries in before we bring it out to the coop, and we'll get that going here in just a second. So like I said before, I really don't like using a drill to tighten things, but I will use it to unscrew this. These little machine screws, they're such finely threaded that I would be spinning the screwdriver for about a minute for each one. But when I go to put it back on, you will see me just use a screwdriver to close it down. So here's the back side of this. We're going to put the batteries in here after we put this on. As you can see here, it's labeled coop light and door. And we also have some screws here. So when we run the wire in here, you put it underneath this piece of plastic. That way it doesn't move around and it stays tight. So I'll put these off to the side, somewhere where I won't lose them. This one I'll undo by hand. I don't want to pinch or bind anything with this one. We should be able to just take 2 out, and yeah, we'll be able to bend that up. And again, because this is going to be temporary, I'm not going to take a whole lot of this wire out. I might just pull one section of it here. I'll retighten this, and I have some wire ties that I can screw in here to keep it, you know, up and out of the way of the chickens from pecking at it or anything. So go ahead and pop that in. It was a whole lot easier than I thought it was. As usual, my wife will tell you that I tend to make things more difficult than they have to be from time to time. And by time to time, I mean most of the time. So we'll put these screws back in. These wires aren't binding on anything. We won't put them again too tight because this is just plastic. There's some rubber here. It's a weatherproofing. Go ahead and put some batteries in. And we'll get this set in, and actually you can see here there's a gasket around this entire thing that keeps it waterproof. We've had the door on our other coop for, I'm trying to think, going on 3 years now, and that's been solid. It's never leaked, and we've never had issues of water getting into it. About once a year we have to change the batteries. It was a little more often when we had the coop light going, but after we realized that we really had no use for that, the batteries would go about a year. And it does say every once in a while when my wife opens the lid here, it'll say batteries low, so she'll know when to change it. You know, as the year goes on, winter, summer, and the amount of daylight changes, she adjusts the time on it, so she's always opening and closing it. So just get this tightened up like that. A few extra turns just to make sure the Weatherproofing keeps it weatherproof. Apologize for putting my hand in the way there. So now, the next time you see me, we will be out in the coop. So this says close at 6, battery 100%. Really don't know what that means just right now. But I'm going to leave this to you when you get your own omelet door. You can figure out how you want to program it and set it up. But it does show the battery percentage right there. So we're going to close that up. I'm going to get a few wire ties just to tie this up neatly here. Keep it all in place. And then we'll get this mounted outside. So I didn't think about this when I put the back side of this together with these screws and washers, but the top here we had to cut some holes in order for these to sit in before we mount it. So we're going to go ahead and get this screwed on. And again, this is just a plastic playhouse, so once these deck screws go in, they kind of start self-tapping themselves, and then they'll pull everything tighter. So there we have it. Everything's installed. I couldn't find those cable ties that I said I had, so I ended up just stapling a couple zip ties to that. That way it stays shut. If you don't know, and you probably don't, I have a little OCD about wires and things looking neat. So that was the best I had at the moment. We'll take a look at this. So you flip the lid open, and if you want to close it by itself, just press and hold, and it'll end up closing. As you can see, that's what it's doing now. Obviously we're double checking to make sure everything works. So now this door's closed. Not really sure what the setting is. It says open at 27. Yeah. Again, my wife does all the programming on it, so you can check out one of her YouTube videos, and I'll put a link in the description below on her channel, and maybe she'll get around to making a video on how to do that for you. But we're gonna go ahead and open this back up. That way the chicks can get used to it, run around. We're gonna close this lid. And there we have it.